Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video, we will see how we can read the waveform from the LIN-Bus with oscilloscope and how we can analyze it. LIN-Bus is a local interconnect network, which is a single wire communication network in the car, and it can be used on different systems. This single wire network provides much slower speed compared to the CAN bus, and it's used on less critical systems. For example, on this car, we have the LIN-Bus used on battery sensor, but you might have the LIN-Bus on many other systems as well. We might have link control alternators. You might see the LIN-Bus on rain sensors, on rear parking assist systems, and so on. The application of the LIN-Bus is a lot. In a lot of systems, you can see that. And of course, in this video, we're gonna use Launch Oscilloscope to read the waveform and to analyze it. So first of all, let's have a look at the wiring diagram for the battery sensor on this car. As you see, battery sensor is located right here. We have two wires on the sensor. That brown wire is for the LIN-Bus communication network, which is connected between the battery sensor and PCM, or powertrain control module. So back in here, this is the PCM. We have the battery sensor right here. And if I disconnect the connector, right at the back, you see two wires. That brown wire on the left is the LIN-Bus. So we're gonna back probe that wire, then we can read the waveform. So I'm gonna use one of these test probes. We are only using one channel on oscilloscope because this network has only one wire. So I'm using channel 2. One end of the probe is already connected to the scope box. On the other end, I have these two. This is for picking up the signal, so I need to connect this one to the test probe. And this is for a good ground. Channel 2 is on. I'm not using attenuator. As you see, I have 20x right here, which is already set for attenuator. I'm gonna go right here and put this one on 1x because we are not using any attenuator. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna turn the ignition switch on, then we read the waveform to see what we can get. So as you see, as soon as I turn the ignition switch on, I got the waveform. So the waveform is too big for us. You can click on the auto function, or from here, we have pre-adjusted waveforms. I'm gonna go to the network, and LIN is what we are getting. Let's click on this one and see how this oscilloscope is gonna set that waveform for us. This one is set on channel 1. I'm gonna change the probe from channel 2 to channel 1. Okay. You see the setting is very great right now. So we are getting the waveform and all the sections are coded as well. If I put the trigger this way, so the adjustment that this oscilloscope did for us is really great, because if I wanted to do the manual setting, I was looking for something exactly similar. And as you see, different sections on LIN-Bus is coded for us as well. Of course, right now, if you want to make the waveform taller or shorter, you can go for here. This is actually for changing the voltage range, and here for the time setting. So you can actually adjust the time setting and the voltage range by using here and this point. I explained this section at the very beginning. I zoom it out a little so we can read the entire waveform. I'm gonna pause it again. So we are getting the entire waveform of the LIN-Bus. So the first thing is we are getting the waveform. That's a good sign, because if LIN-Bus is down, you're not gonna get any waveform, or your waveform is gonna be all over the place. You will have so many abnormalities, or the voltage range could be different. Like any other waveform, if you have access to a good known waveform, that's the best thing to compare what you are reading to what you are supposed to read. That's going to be really straightforward. You got the waveform, you compare it with the good known waveform, and you reach to this conclusion if the waveform is good or bad. In this waveform, what we are getting is the communication between PCM and battery sensor. On the LIN-Bus, we have actually one master node and multiple slave. In this case, because we have only one battery sensor, there's only one slave node. So the master node is PCM, the slave node is battery sensor. It means master node keep asking the information and a slave node keep responding. So here in this section, The first section that we have in here is actually what master node is sending on a network to request the information. And after that, we have the response from the slave node. After verifying that the waveform actually exists, you need to make sure that these two sections exist as well. Data request from the master node and data response from the slave node. As you see, we have them both. I'm gonna make some faults later on the network, so you will see how this will change in case of having any issues. What about the voltage range? The base voltage and voltage at this point. So for that, we can actually use the cursor, the horizontal cursor. I have Y1 right here that I'm gonna put it right here at this point, and Y2 that should be located right here. We can read the voltage right here at Y1. We have 11.72, which is almost battery voltage at this point. And down here, the voltage is less than 800 millivolts. So normally on different cars that I have checked, the voltage range right here is between 700 to 800 millivolts. This is actually what we are supposed to get on the LIN-Bus. If you have LIN-Bus shorted to the ground, the voltage here is going to be constantly at something very close to zero. If you have the LIN-Bus shorted to the power, the voltage that you get is going to be constantly at battery voltage. So this is actually one sign. But sometimes you have the issue on the slave node or on the master node. So I'm gonna run the waveform right now. Let's get rid of this cursor. So we have the master node and the slave node sections right now. But just imagine if the slave node is not responding, what's gonna happen? I'm gonna disconnect the connector on the battery sensor and see what's gonna happen in here, because I'm trying to simulate the situation that slave node is not responding, it's broken for any reason. So I disconnected the connector on battery sensor, but of course backprop still reads the waveform. That's why, as you see here, we are only getting the data request on PCM. There is no response because the battery sensor is disconnected from the circuit. This is gonna happen when slave node is gone bad. If a slave node is gone bad, or if there is any issue on the slave node connector, something like this is gonna happen because the slave node cannot respond back to the master node. But please remember that I've had some cases that slave node was gone bad, but when I was trying to read the waveform, there was nothing in here because the slave node was reflecting the issue on the network, collapsing the network. So network wasn't working because of the slave node issues. So in that case, my diagnostic was trying to read the waveform. There was no waveform. And at the same time, when backprobe was on the network, I tried to disconnect the connector on the slave node. So right after disconnecting the connector on the network, I saw that I had very same waveform like what we have in here. So it means if network is completely down, if you don't have any waveform, but right after disconnecting the connector on the slave node, you get a waveform like this, it means the problem was actually on the slave node interrupting the entire network. The problem could be on the master node as well. If master node is gone bad, most likely you will have no waveform at all, because master node cannot send any data request and a slave node is not going to respond back as well. I'm going to connect the connector back. So as you see, waveform is back to normal. We are having the data request and data response. This is actually very effective diagnostic for LIN-Bus. First of all, for checking the voltage to see if the voltage is at normal level. As I said, if it is shorted to the ground, you will have constantly low voltage. If it is shorted to the power, you will have constantly higher voltage. If a slave node is gone bad, you will have no data response. If master node is gone bad, you will have no waveform at all.